Hey, what's up guys, TechTime here, and this is the 2025 Moto Edge, and I've spent a couple of hours with this phone so I can give you guys a solid first impressions. But before I begin, I do want to thank you all so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, leave a thumbs up, also consider subscribing. A lot of great content is coming soon, and coverage for this phone and other devices will be on the way, so stay tuned for that. So with that being said, the 2025 Moto Edge takes what is already a great phone and improves upon it. So it's a very similar formula to what they did from the previous generation 24 Moto Edge, but again, like I said, they took that formula and improved upon it. And to be honest, the last year's 24 Moto Edge was my favorite mid-range device of the year. I know there's a lot of competition in that specific price range, but I think this phone might be a runner-up, especially since I know Motorola will bring the price of this phone down eventually. And this phone does start at $549, which is a competitive price point, but you also get a lot of things. So the material of choice as far as design is very similar to pretty much all their Motorola lineup. However, the pattern for this vegan leather material is a little bit different and feels a little bit more solid in the hand. Now, I can't really speak on the durability of this material, but I can tell you that it has been pretty solid for the most part. And you still also get this kind of Motorola logo straight in the center, just like you normally would. Now, on the bottom of the phone, you don't get a headphone jack, but you get a USB-C that is capable of 68 watts of fast charging. You also get your speaker, your SIM card slot, as well as a microphone on the bottom. On the right hand side, you will get your power button and a volume up and down, and these are thinner buttons than you would normally see in a regular smartphone, just because of the curvature around the sides of the phone from the back to the actual display. Now, the back also has your triple camera setup, which has actually been improved tremendously this time around. So on the camera on here, you get a triple camera setup, and each camera actually serves a purpose. So you get a main sensor, an ultra wide, and a telephoto sensor, but we'll talk about that more in the camera segment. And overall, the curvature around this phone is pretty noticeable throughout, so it's very uniform. Which I hate because it's not really customizable. That's all it does, just AI. You can turn it off, which means the button is basically have no function, and that's kind of disappointing, and I hate that, but it is what it is. That's just what you get this year. Now, if we look at the display of this phone, you get a larger footprint from the previous generation, so you get a 6.7 inch versus the 6.6 inch from the previous gen, where it is a POLED display with 120Hz HDR10 Plus support, as well as a crazy to even say out loud, a 4500 nits of peak brightness. So this phone definitely gets plenty bright, and it's a 92% screen to body ratio with kind of the 2712 by 1220 pixel ratio for 44 pixels per inch. So it has the whole deal, and it's definitely a really good display. Now, the edges themselves are kind of uniform throughout, so even at the top and the bottom there are some slight curvature, but the most noticeable ones would be the ones on the side. And obviously you either love it or hate it. I hated it at first, but it does grow on you the more you use the device. It still can be inconvenience at times, but when it comes to watching videos, browsing social media, or doing anything that would require you to use this display, it will definitely be an enjoyable experience throughout. Now, again, the edges themselves, they can be obtrusive at times, but for the most part, they grew on me, and I don't mind them. So that's that for you. Now, circling back to the camera situation, so it is a triple camera setup with your main sensor being a 50 megapixel with optical image stabilization. You also get a 10 megapixel telephoto lens with 3 times optical zoom. It also does have optical image stabilization, and you get a 50 megapixel ultra wide at 122-degree field of view. So a definite upgrade in the camera department, and this phone does shoot 4K at 30 frames per second. Even the front-facing camera did receive a decent upgrade at a 50 megapixel selfie camera with 4K at 30 frames per second. And as far as I'm concerned, I do need to spend a little bit more time with the camera to kind of give you guys a definitive conclusion on it, but from what I've seen, this phone does take some improved pictures from the previous generation, from the little time that I spent with it. So the interface itself is a very familiar interface, so you have the option to switch between your main sensor, and taking pictures here is a snap. It's quick and straight to the point, so switching between your modes from your main camera to your ultra wide to your 2x and even 3x optical zoom is a quick experience. So it's faster than what I've seen in the previous model. And also you have the ability to go as far as 2x to even crazy 30 times zoom, which obviously the resolution is going to be garbage, but you have it if you want to use it. So let's go ahead and speak on the performance a little bit. So you get the following specs. So you get a MediaTek Dimensity 7400 Ultra chip with a 4nm architecture. It is octa-core with the Mali G615 MC2 for your GPU, 256 base storage, which is fantastic, 8GB of RAM, and a 5200 mAh battery, wireless charging 15 watts, wire charging 68 watts, and the specs overall seem to be really good. So it's definitely in the higher end of the mid-range phones, but I want to say that if you were comparing it to kind of a Qualcomm chip, this is more so the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7S Gen 2. Overall, for your daily tasks, for your things that you do on the normal, this phone will do it fantastic. So it would do the phone app very quick, the messaging app, and it does also have in-display fingerprint sensor that I would say it's not the fastest that I've used or the most reliable, but it works for the most part. If you place your finger right, it's going to work pretty much most of the time. Sometimes it does take a minute, or you have to use your thumb or whichever finger you decide to use twice, but everything else on this phone as far as functionality and performance, I haven't seen a lot of glitches on it, so that's definitely a thumbs up on my end. Now, I do also want to mention the fact that this phone does have an IP69 rating, which means that it is military spec certified, so it does withstand high heat, and dust and water resistance on there is going to be good. And for the most part, this is shaping up to be one of my favorite phones of the year. So I will be comparing it to phones with a similar price point, such as the OnePlus 13R or even the Nothing Phone 3, which are phones that are meant to compete within the same price range. So the $549 price range and upwards of $650 is where I would find this phone to be. Is it a perfect phone? Absolutely not. Is it for everyone? Absolutely not. But I think it will please a lot of the users that would get this device. And overall, this kind of impressions video is basically the tip of the iceberg. I still want to put this phone through its proper paces, test out the camera in depth, test out the performance in depth, and even just see how good this overall design is or how practical it will be. So we'll see. Stay tuned for all that. Videos are coming really soon, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.